doing
This was definitely mismanaged.
That's a big word we're hearing now.
Mismanaged, like some idiot on the internet knows how to manage the worst fire in LA, sitting there in his underwear.
Wait, all the people in charge of LA's fire response are lesbians named Kristen?
Drought conditions, high winds, and densely stacked flammable structures were all fine until they added the lesbians.
You just saw two successful, relevant comedians and one not so successful, irrelevant comedian react to the conspiracies about the LA fires. And I've got to say, watching Bill Burr and Jon Stewart clown on all of these armchair experts and idiotic conspiracy theorists has been food for my soul, because the response to these fires from people online has been truly one of the most depressing things ever. And it's not surprising, especially seeing how this country responded to COVID-19. Nonetheless, it's still really demoralizing. Rather than extending sympathy to the victims and expressing genuine concern for their well-being, we've seen the blame be placed on unhoused people, on immigrants, DEI, and it's been insinuated that Democrats did this on purpose, and there's also this accusation that they have the power to stop it immediately somehow, but they're choosing not to for some reason. And I'm not talking about boomer memes being shared by Uncle Ricky on Facebook. We're talking about sitting members of Congress who are participating in all of this. For example, Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted, quote, "Why don't they use geoengineering like cloud seeding to bring rain down on the wildfires in California? They know how to do it." This is a grown woman with legislative power who tweeted this. The fact that any American would cast a vote for this bird brain dipshit is an indictment on the entire country. So much bullshit has been thrown around, perhaps deliberately so that way we're not having a conversation about the actual reason why we're seeing unprecedented fires in the middle of winter. It is because of climate change. Natural disasters are going to happen no matter what, but they are happening more frequently because of anthropogenic climate change. And they're also being turbocharged because of anthropogenic climate change. Nobody wants to talk about that, but that is something that is crucial. And this isn't just speculation or conjecture. We're going to hear from Gavin Schmidt, who is the director of NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies, who's going to explain in layman terms how climate change exacerbated this crisis. And I promise you we will get back to Bill Burr and Jon Stewart in a minute, but first I think it's important to center this conversation around climate change.
So fires need a number of ingredients. So you need to have fuel that's going to burn. You need to have what's called fire weather. That's the dry air and the strong winds that are most conducive to allowing wildfires to spread. And of course, you need an ignition source. And the climate aspect of this is very much in the both in the fuel load and in the fire weather aspects. So in Southern California, we used to think of the late fall as being fire season. Well, now fire season stretches out all year because the temperatures and the evaporative draw, the drying out of the land surface has been increasing as temperatures have increased. And so the other part of that is the fuel load. One of the things that we've been seeing in California is this kind of whiplash between extreme wet events like multiple atmospheric rivers at the beginning of last year, and then extreme dry events. So it hasn't really rained in the Los Angeles area for months now, and that has led to both a spurt of growth when there was water, and then all of that growth has dried out, providing unfortunately a perfect storm for fires this season. And now in the wintertime, when you get these strong Santa Ana winds coming off the cold mountains into the warm basin, those have provided that extra component of fire weather, and we're seeing the results.
So the culprit is climate change, but it behooves politicians and the fossil fuel executives who fund them to get you to think that it's immigrants or DEI. So let's just cut the bullshit. It's climate change. 2024 was the hottest year on record. And before that, 2023 was the hottest year on record. In fact, the top 10 hottest years on record all occurred within the last decade. So we are cooking our planet. And Republicans, meanwhile, are scapegoating DEI and unhoused people because they're desperately trying to get you to not think about climate change because they're not going to do anything about it. But aside from all the distractions that they're throwing at us, we've also seen something that isn't necessarily new, but it's reached a new level, and I'm talking about the cruelty. For example, Trump shared this AI-generated image on Truth Social, which says Trump was right. I mean, great timing, Don. Really a way to read the room here. And he also shared this image, which reads, "It's not climate change, it's Democrats." And he says this while he shares bullshit claims about California not having enough water to protect some endangered fish. And to be fair, I think it's okay to point out the failures of leadership. Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom, they are not above criticism. But if you are going to criticize Democrats, maybe base it on something that's factual and not just some made-up bullshit. But I mean, this is what Trump does. None of us expect him to behave like an adult during a time of need. But that's our president, folks. But by far the worst thing that Republicans have done throughout this crisis is float the idea of conditioning disaster relief to California. Donald Trump, as well as Speaker Mike Johnson and other Republicans, have all made it very clear that Californians shouldn't get the help they need unless there's strings attached. And that is genuinely fucking evil. There is no other way to put it. During Hurricane Helene, which mostly impacted red states last year, did you hear Democrats floating the idea of conditioning disaster relief because they disagree with the way that those states were run? No, they supported aid because regular people don't deserve to suffer because of partisan nonsense. And I think that Jon Stewart put it best in his reaction to all of this.
They don't deserve anything, to be honest with you, unless they show us they're going to make some changes.
What the is wrong with you? Really, Senator? From Alabama? The state near the bottom in math, reading, and test scores? Next time you get hit by a hurricane, why don't we have a little parent-teacher conference to see that if you got your scores up, you would get the money? Or actually, let's not do it, because you'll get the money anyway, because we're not psychos.
Well said. This is why I appreciate comedians like him so much during times like these. This is just demented behavior from Republicans, and I get that the bar is really low from them since we all expect them to be evil, but this almost feels like a new low. And it's especially egregious considering how much money California contributes to the federal government. See, Republicans hate blue states, yet they're happy to accept funding from these woke Democrat-run states if their state experiences a natural disaster. It's sickening. You know, these people make me sick. Now, you also saw Jon Stewart address the dumbass claim that DEI is to blame for the fires at the beginning of this video, so I do want to explore that a little bit more after we hear from today's sponsor. If this last election taught us anything, it is that narratives are everything, and the way that news stories are framed actually affects our perception of reality, which is why I teamed up with Ground News, who's the sponsor of today's video. The independent team at the Ground News app gathers articles from thousands of media outlets to provide you with additional context about the publication's ideological slant, reliability, and ownership, and it's all backed by ratings from 3 independent news monitoring organizations. And to show you what I mean, when Mark Zuckerberg announced an end to Meta's fact-checking policy, more right-wing outlets like the Ohio Star framed it as an end to, quote, censorship, whereas more centrist and left-leaning outlets characterized it as a move to appease Donald Trump. And you can also see the breakdown of the type of coverage of this story, including the bias distribution, the factuality score, as well as aggregate data about the ownership of organizations that covered it. So if being a responsible consumer of media is as important to you as it is to me, check them out at groundnews.com/humanist and use my link to save 50% off on the same Vantage plan that I use for unlimited access to all of their features. Thank you so much to Ground News for sponsoring this video. So now that affirmative action has been dismantled by the Supreme Court entirely, DEI has taken its place as the new boogeyman to discredit marginalized people who happen to be successful. Case in point.
So who else is running things? This right here, ladies and gentlemen? This is the leadership of the LA Fire Department. I sure hope they know what they're doing. Here's the fire chief.
She took time out of her already busy schedule to tell us about her vision for the department's future, one that includes a 3-year strategic plan to increase diversity.
People ask me, well, what number are you looking for? I say, I'm not looking for a number. It's never enough.
Out of 3,300 city firefighters, only 115 are women right now.
Got her. She's totally owned, bro. You know, if she wasn't so focused on diversity, maybe she could have prevented this. Except diversity is objectively good in and of itself, and it has nothing to do with the fires. But diversity is good, and I'm glad that leaders like her focus on it because it, 1, promotes social cohesion, and 2, is a necessity to expand the number of firefighters in California who's currently experiencing a shortage. I mean, think about it. When I say the word firefighter, what type of person comes to mind, putting aside your horniness for a second? your mind probably conjured an image of a man. So if more women knew that this was a job that was accessible to them, then, that would make things better. It'd be a win for everyone. It'd expand opportunities for women while addressing the firefighter shortage. That doesn't mean that they're not going to hire men anymore. It just means, hey, it's a good idea to bring more people into the fold. And it's not like they're plucking random women off the streets. Of course, they have to be qualified like everyone else. And I feel like we shouldn't have to say that, right? But we do in this day and age, because people see women and Republicans try to prime them to think, oh, unqualified or DEI. But aside from the explicit misogyny that we've seen, there's been open homophobia as well from the likes of comedians like Whitney Cummings, who said this.
I think lesbians can be firefighters. Dope, fine. I'm not thinking about your genitals or your preferences when I need a hero, right? But is that not like, why is it okay? That'd be like a gay man being like, we need more gay men in here. That'd be like me going, we need more hot guys in here to be firefighters. That would be like a dude being like, we just need more hot blondes. That's what we need. And I will not stop until there are more people that I'm attracted to or that are in my dating pool. Like, isn't that essentially just recruiting people in your dating pool to work at your office? Wait, all the people in charge of LA's fire response are lesbians named Kristen? I do not recall voting on a prop that said we could recruit our fire team off Grindr. What?
Well, she said she loves lesbians, so I guess it can't be homophobic. That's the way it works, right? Listen, is it a hilarious coincidence that they're all lesbians named Kristen? Of course it is. But this idea that she specifically recruited other lesbians because she wants to fuck them, that is queerphobic, straight up. No pun intended. It plays into this trope that queer people are overly promiscuous and they only are interested in interpersonal relationships insofar as they're able to get some sort of a sexual benefit out of it. It's gross. And that's what Whitney Cummings is playing into, even though she says she loves lesbians. This woman that we're talking about here is married. If she were a straight man and she hired a woman, or if she were a straight woman and hired a man, would you assume it was only because she wanted to fuck them? Of course not, because everything that queer people do is hypersexualized. But the implication that, this is somehow the fault of her because she's a lesbian woman is fucking idiotic. Whitney Cummings is a moron for recommending that. And Jon Stewart's reaction to this notion was so good that I want to play it one more time.
But apparently to the right, drought conditions, high winds, and densely stacked flammable structures were all fine until they added the lesbians.
Yeah, if they were all straight men named John, none of this would be happening. Fuck out of here. But, this DEI dog whistle is relevant because since we've apparently established that a lesbian woman is incompetent and unqualified to do the job, it's opened the floodgates to armchair experts online who all assume that they must be more qualified than a lesbian woman. And that's why I found Bill Burr's commentary so refreshing, because he responds to these suggestions in the best way possible, in a way that only a comedian can.
Oh my God, all of these fire experts. Why didn't you just fly a helicopter into the ocean and then just, I don't know, because there was 100-knot winds? You want to do that? You want to do that at night, you lunatic?
How are you?
This was definitely mismanaged.
That's a big word we're hearing now.
Mismanaged, like some idiot on the internet knows how to manage the worst fire in LA sitting there in his underwear. You know what? Looking at the footage on the internet, I have determined that this here was mismanaged. And I love how all the chatter out there is about bands of illegal immigrants and homeless people lighting fires. They light fires every day. They're living outside. They're cold. And this theory that some homeless guy without a car went from Altadena all the way to the Pacific Palisades, and then we have a hang glider.
He is so right. All of these people need a big slice of humble pie, and Bill Burr is the best person to serve it to them. Another thing that I saw was people saying, how are they running out of water when California is right next to an ocean? I mean, they know everything, but yet it still needs to be explained to them why you can't use salt water to fight fires. I mean, I understand that nobody has trust in our leaders and institutions, and there's legitimate and not so legitimate reasons for that, but that doesn't automatically make everyone else experts. It doesn't make some dickhead on Joe Rogan's podcast an expert because he suggested pouring ivermectin on the fires or some shit, and nobody's ever recommended this new and innovative idea. Let's all acknowledge our intellectual limitations and learn how to shut the fuck up once in a while. But there is one last clip that I want to play from Bill Burr's appearance on Jimmy Kimmel. And I want to play this for you because he addresses cuts to fire coverage by greedy insurance companies like State Farm, Nationwide, and others. And what he then does is invokes Luigi Mangione, which is fucking hilarious. And I think that Jimmy Kimmel probably felt uncomfortable and didn't know how to respond. Nonetheless, let's watch.
And they're talking about looting, but CNN and Fox News are not going to bring up the insurance companies that are just going to keep everybody's premiums and still give themselves a bonus. Yeah. Yes. Free Luigi. I love how they acted surprised. Why did that happen? I have no idea. He wrote on the bullets why it happened.
Oh, we're back to Luigi. Okay, yeah.
I never left Luigi.
Bill Burr is a fucking legend. And I don't think that we talked about his response to the Luigi Mangione story. Maybe we did. I don't remember. But I know that Kyle Kalinske and David Dole both did videos about it. And I would encourage you to check those out because his comments were very similar to Ethel Cain's comments about it, which kind of proves that he is one of the few comedians, along with Jon Stewart, who still seem to get it, who still understand the perspective of normal people, even if they've been able to pull themselves out of poverty and, become rich themselves. But in conclusion, even though it is a breath of fresh air to see comedians like Bill Burr and Jon Stewart dismantle right-wing talking points and conspiracy theories, I still can't help but feel saddened by the fact that this is basically what we are going to have happen every single time there's some sort of a national emergency or a tragedy. Opportunistic loudmouths are going to spread misinformation and lie because of some political agenda they have or because they want clout or clicks. It is so depressing, but this is what our country has become. It's an insult to every single person who's suffering right now because of this. And if you are one of the people who are affected by the fires, my heart goes out to you. I don't have any healing words or words of wisdom for you or platitudes to offer, but please just hang in there. I know it's hard, but just hang in there. And as much as I want to encourage people to donate to a particular charity, I'm not necessarily sure which ones are trustworthy. So in lieu of that, I do want to ask people in the comment section to recommend reliable organizations that they trust. And I'll also ask you to consider giving to the GoFundMe for this couple I stumbled across on Twitter that just isn't really getting a lot of attention. That is, of course, if you're able to. But that's all I've got for you. We'll leave that right there.
Like everywhere there's glow. You see them all the time. I mean, it's constant. My children will be like, Mama, glow, 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 glow. I turn on TV, there's glow in the background. Every TV show, news media,
glow, 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 glow. They're everywhere. Glow, 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 glow.